I pulled into the Costco parking lot on a gray November afternoon, the kind of day where the sky and pavement blend into one endless sheet of cold. I was there to pick up some supplies, maybe grab a rotisserie chicken for dinner. Just another Tuesday in Vancouver. But as I drove past the far corner of the lot, near where the RVs and campers usually park, I saw something that made my heart stop. A silver Honda Civic. Windows fogged up, and through the condensation, I could make out the shape of someone huddled in the driver's seat, a small figure wrapped in blankets in the back. I knew that car. I'd helped my daughter pick it out 6 years ago when she graduated from college. I parked my truck and walked over, my legs feeling heavier with each step. When I got close enough, I could see her face pressed against the window. Sarah, my daughter. Her eyes were closed, her hair matted against her forehead. In the back seat, I could see my grandson Owen, all of 7 years old, curled up under a winter coat, and next to him, in a car seat that looked like it had seen better days, was my granddaughter, 3 months old. I hadn't even met her yet. I knocked gently on the window. Sarah's eyes flew open, wide with panic at first, then recognition, then something worse, shame. She scrambled to unlock the door, nearly knocking over an empty water bottle in the cup holder. "Dad," she said, her voice cracking. "Dad, Get out of the car, sweetheart," I said quietly. "Come on." She climbed out, wrapping a thin cardigan around herself. November in Vancouver isn't deadly cold like the prairies, but it's damp, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones. She was shivering. "How long have you been here?" I asked. 3 days. She whispered, not meeting my eyes. "We've been moving between parking lots, Costco, Walmart, sometimes the mall." I looked past her at Owen, who was now awake and staring at me with huge, frightened eyes. The baby was starting to fuss. "Where is the house I bought for you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "The one in Burnaby? Where is the baby you just had? Why are you living in your car with my grandchildren?" Sarah started to cry then, silent tears running down her face. "Dad, they took everything. Greg and his mother. They said I had no right to any of it. They kicked me out." I felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. 2 years ago, when Sarah and her husband Greg had their first child, Owen, things got tight financially. Greg was working sales jobs, nothing steady. And Sarah had left her position as a dental hygienist to care for Owen full-time because he needed extra support. Autism, the doctors said, high functioning, but he needed routine, therapy, patience. I'd wanted to help. I sold some stocks I'd been saving since my days working as a millwright, and I put down $200,000 for a 3-bedroom house in Burnaby. Not fancy, but solid. Good schools nearby, a yard where Owen could play. I put it in Sarah's name, just hers. I made sure of that. Or so I thought. "What do you mean they took it?" I asked. Sarah wiped her face with the back of her hand. "Greg's mother, Patricia. She's been living with us since Owen was born. She said she needed to help with him, that I couldn't manage on my own. And then when I got pregnant again, she got worse. She started telling Greg that I was unstable, that I wasn't capable of taking care of the kids. She said I had postpartum depression with Owen and that it was back with Emily." "Emily?" I said. "The baby." Sarah glanced back at the car. "I named her Emily. After Mom." I felt a lump in my throat. My wife had passed away 8 years ago. Sarah had been her whole world. "Keep talking," I said. "Patricia convinced Greg that I was a danger to the kids. She said I was having mood swings, that I was neglecting them. None of it was true, Dad. I was tired, yes. I'd just had a baby, but I was taking care of them. Owen was doing well. He was eating, going to his therapy sessions, happy. And Emily, she was perfect. But Patricia wouldn't let me alone with her. She took over everything, fed her, changed her, wouldn't let me hold my own daughter." "And Greg?" I asked. Sarah's face crumpled. "Greg believed her. Or he pretended to. I don't know which is worse. He started watching me all the time, questioning everything I did. Then, one night, Patricia called someone. A social worker, I think. They came to the house and said there had been reports of neglect. They took Emily. They said it was temporary, just until they could assess the situation. But it's been 3 weeks, Dad. 3 weeks, and they won't give her back. They gave her to Greg and Patricia. I felt my hands curl into fists. And the house? I found out last week that Greg refinanced it. I don't know how he did it, but Patricia helped him forge documents or something. They said the house was in both our names, even though you put it in mine. They said I'd sign papers agreeing to it, but I never did. And then when CPS took Emily, Patricia told me to get out. She said I was an unfit mother and that I didn't deserve to be there. Greg just stood there and let her. He didn't even look at me. Where was Owen during all this? They let me keep him, barely. They said because he's older and Greg works during the day, I could stay at the house during the day to watch him. But then last week, Patricia said that was over too. She hired a nanny. She told me to leave and not come back. Greg changed the locks. I stared at her. My daughter, my smart, capable, loving daughter, who had stayed up all night with Owen when he was sick, who had worked 2 jobs to put herself through college, who had once wanted to be a veterinarian because she loved animals so much. And now she was standing in a parking lot, homeless, separated from her baby, holding on by a thread. Get Owen and Emily's car seat, I said. You're coming home with me. Dad, Emily's not even here. They have her. I know, but you're not staying in this car another night. Get your things. We're going to fix this. She hesitated, then nodded. We got Owen out of the back seat. He didn't say anything, just held onto his mother's hand and looked at me with those big, solemn eyes. Kids know when something's wrong. They always do. I drove them back to my place in East Vancouver, a small 2-bedroom I'd lived in since before Sarah was born. It wasn't much, but it was warm and dry. I set Sarah and Owen up in my room, told them to rest, that we'd talk more in the morning. But I couldn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee and tried to make sense of what I'd just heard. My daughter had been systematically isolated, manipulated, and robbed by her husband and mother-in-law. They'd used her postpartum vulnerability against her. They'd taken her child. They'd stolen her house. And they'd done it all under the guise of concern for the children's welfare. I thought about Patricia. I'd only met her a handful of times. She was one of those women who smiled a lot, but never with her eyes, always talking about how hard things were, how much she sacrificed, how no one appreciated her. Greg, her son, was weak. I'd known that from the start, but Sarah had loved him, and I'd kept my mouth shut. Now I wished I hadn't. The next morning, I made breakfast. Pancakes. The kind Sarah used to love as a kid. Owen ate quietly. Syrup all over his face. Sarah picked at hers. We need to talk about what happens next, I said. She nodded. I know. I need to figure out where we can stay. Maybe a shelter, or... You're staying here, I said firmly. That's not up for debate. But we need to get Emily back. And we need to get that house back. They stole from you. They committed fraud. We're not letting them get away with it. Dad, I don't have money for a lawyer. I've spent everything I had on food and gas for the car. I'll handle it, I said. I've got some savings left. We'll find someone good. But what if it's not enough? What if the courts believe them? Patricia's been documenting everything, making it look like I'm unstable. She took photos of the house when it was messy. She recorded me crying once, when I was overwhelmed. She has emails where I said I was struggling. They'll use all of that against me. I reached across the table and took her hand. Sarah, listen to me. I kept records. Every single transfer I made for that house. Every email I sent to Greg confirming that the house was for you. I have bank statements. I have the original deed. I kept everything. I always do. Her eyes widened. You do? 20 years working in the trades teaches you to document everything. I've got a filing cabinet full of papers. We'll find what we need. That afternoon, after Owen was settled in front of the TV watching cartoons, I went into my spare room. I kept my important documents in an old filing cabinet I'd had since the 80s. It was battered and gray, and the top drawer stuck, but everything inside was organized. I pulled out the folder labeled Sarah, House. Inside were copies of everything. The original purchase agreement with Sarah's name as the sole owner. The bank transfer receipts, showing the $200,000 came from my account. Emails between me and Greg where I explicitly stated the money was a gift to Sarah for her security. I'd even kept a handwritten note from Greg thanking me for helping Sarah and the kids. I spread them out on the bed. This was evidence. Real, solid evidence that the house was meant for Sarah, and that any attempt to refinance or transfer ownership without her knowledge was fraud. But the custody issue was trickier. I didn't have documentation proving Sarah was a fit mother because it had never occurred to me I'd need it. She was my daughter. I knew her. But a court wouldn't care about that. I called Sarah into the room. We need to build a case, not just for the house, but for Emily. Do you have anything that shows you were taking care of the kids properly? Photos, medical records, anything. She thought for a moment. I have Owen's therapy logs. I took him to every appointment, and I have pediatrician records for Emily, showing all her checkups. She was gaining weight, hitting milestones. Everything was normal. Good. What else? There's Mrs. Chen, our neighbor. She used to watch the kids sometimes when I needed to run errands. She saw how much I loved them. She saw Patricia too, how controlling she was. Would she testify? I think so. She was always kind to me. She told me once that she didn't trust Patricia. I nodded. Anyone else? Owen's therapist, Miss Rivera. She saw him twice a week. She knew I was the one bringing him, doing the work with him at home. She wrote a progress report saying Owen was thriving. We need to get copies of all that. Medical records, therapy notes, statements from neighbors. Anything that shows you were a good mother. Sarah's eyes filled with tears again. I was, Dad. I am. I love my kids more than anything. I would never hurt them. I know, sweetheart, and we're going to prove it. The next week was a blur. I found a lawyer, a tough woman named Angela Chen who specialized in family law. She was expensive, but she was good. I had to dip into my retirement savings to pay her retainer, but I didn't care. This was my daughter. This was my grandchildren. Angela listened to Sarah's story, looked over the documents I'd brought, and nodded slowly. This is bad, but it's not hopeless. The fraud case for the house is strong. Your father's documentation is excellent. The custody case will be harder, but if we can show that Patricia manipulated the system and that Sarah is a fit mother, we have a chance. How long will it take? Sarah asked. Months, Angela said honestly. Maybe longer. Family court moves slowly, but we'll start by filing an emergency motion to restore some custody. Even supervised visits would be a start. Sarah nodded, biting her lip. I just want to see her. I just want to hold Emily again. We'll make that happen, Angela said. The emergency motion was filed the following week. We requested immediate supervised visitation and a full hearing on custody in the house. Greg's lawyer, a slick guy named Brandon Holt, fought it hard. He submitted Patricia's evidence, the photos, the recordings, the emails. He argued that Sarah was unstable and that Emily was better off with her father. But Angela was ready. She submitted Owen's therapy records showing that he was thriving under Sarah's care. She submitted Emily's medical records showing a healthy baby. She got statements from Mrs. Chen and Miss Rivera, both attesting to Sarah's dedication as a mother. And she pointed out the glaring fact that Sarah had been homeless for weeks with a 7-year-old autistic child, and yet Owen was clean, fed, and safe. That didn't sound like neglect. The judge, a woman named Justice Thompson, reviewed everything and granted supervised visits, twice a week, 2 hours at a time, at a neutral location. Sarah cried when Angela called to tell us. The first visit was at a community center in Surrey. I drove Sarah there and waited in the parking lot. She was inside for 2 hours, and when she came out, she was crying, but smiling too. She's so big, Sarah said as she got into the truck. She's grown so much, and she smiled at me. Dad, she recognized me. Of course she did, I said. You're her mother. Over the next few weeks, the visits continued. Sarah was never late, never missed one. Angela used that to build the case. She also started digging into the house situation. She got the refinancing documents that Greg had submitted and noticed discrepancies. Sarah's signature was forged, badly. Angela brought in a handwriting expert who confirmed it. We've got them, Angela said during one of our meetings. This is fraud, clear as day. We can pursue criminal charges if we want. Will that help get Emily back? Sarah asked. It'll show the court that Greg and Patricia are willing to break the law to get what they want. It undermines their credibility. We filed a motion to have the refinancing declared void and to restore Sarah's sole ownership of the house. Greg's lawyer tried to argue that Sarah had verbally agreed to it, but the forged signature killed that argument. The judge ruled in Sarah's favor. The house was Sarah's again, and Greg and Patricia were ordered to vacate within 30 days. But Patricia wasn't done. She escalated. She filed a new report with CPS claiming that Sarah had been hostile during the supervised visits, that she'd said threatening things. It was a lie. And the supervisor at the visits submitted a statement saying Sarah had been nothing but loving and appropriate. But it slowed things down. It created doubt. She's desperate, Angela said. She knows she's losing. Will it work? I asked. Not if we stay the course. But it's going to take time. Time. That was the hardest part. Watching Sarah go through this, day after day, week after week. Watching her hold it together for Owen, who missed his sister. Watching her cry in the bathroom when she thought no one could hear. But then something unexpected happened. Greg cracked. He showed up at my door one evening in early January. It was raining, a cold, miserable rain that Vancouver does so well. He stood on my porch, soaked, looking like he hadn't slept in days. I need to talk to Sarah, he said. Not a chance, I replied. You don't get to come here. Please. I need to tell her something. I need to make this right. Sarah appeared behind me. Let him in, Dad. Sarah. Let him in. I stepped aside. Greg came into the living room, dripping water on the floor. He looked at Sarah, and for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I saw something like remorse on his face. I'm sorry, he said. I'm so sorry. I didn't know how far Mom would go. I didn't think. You didn't think? Sarah's voice was quiet, but it cut like a knife. You let her take our daughter. You kicked me out of my own house. You stood there and watched me become homeless. I know, Greg's voice broke. I know, and I'll never forgive myself, but I need you to know the truth. Mom lied. About all of it. She told me you were having violent episodes. She showed me things. Messages that she said you sent. Photos that she said proved you were unstable. I believed her because she's my mother. I didn't question it. But then I found something. What? Sarah asked. Greg pulled out his phone and showed her a video. I found this on Mom's laptop. She left it open one day. It's from the nanny cam she set up in Emily's room. He played it. The video showed Patricia in Emily's nursery, alone. She was holding the baby, and Emily was crying. Patricia looked into the camera and said, "See? She's always crying. Sarah can't soothe her. Sarah doesn't know what she's doing." But the timestamp showed it was the middle of the night. Sarah wasn't even there. Patricia had staged it. There are more, Greg said quietly. Recordings of Mom coaching me on what to say to the social worker. Emails between her and Brandon, my lawyer, where she talks about building a case against you. She even admitted she forged your signature on the refinancing documents. She said it was for the family's good, that you'd understand eventually. Sarah stared at him. Why are you showing me this now? Because I can't do it anymore. I love Emily. I love Owen. But I love you too, Sarah. I always have. And I let Mom destroy us. I'll testify. I'll give Angela all of this. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. Sarah was silent for a long time. Then she said, You should have believed me from the start. I know. You should have protected me. I know. Get out, she said. Give the files to Angela and get out. I don't want to see you unless it's in court. Greg nodded. He handed her a USB drive. It's all here. Everything. I'm sorry, Sarah, for all of it. He left. Sarah stood there holding the drive, her hands shaking. Are you okay? I asked. No, she said. But we're going to win now. And we did. With Greg's evidence, the custody case collapsed. Patricia tried to deny everything, but the videos didn't lie. The judge was furious. She called Patricia's actions unconscionable and a gross abuse of the legal system. Emily was returned to Sarah immediately. Full custody. Greg was granted supervised visitation, but only after completing a parenting course and therapy. Patricia was ordered to stay away from all of them, permanently. The house was already Sarah's again, but the judge also ordered Greg to pay back child support for both kids, plus damages for Sarah's legal fees and emotional distress. It came to over $80,000. Patricia was investigated for fraud, and while I don't know if criminal charges were ever filed, she lost everything. Her reputation, her control over Greg, her access to her grandchildren. As for Greg, he moved into a small apartment in Coquitlam. He started therapy, like the judge ordered. Sarah hasn't forgiven him, and I don't think she ever will. But he sees Owen and Emily once a month, at a supervised facility, and he's trying. That's all he can do now. Sarah and the kids are still living with me. We talked about her moving back into the Burnaby house, but she doesn't want to. Too many bad memories. She's thinking of selling it, using the money to start fresh somewhere new. Maybe a condo closer to Owen's school. Maybe something with a little yard where Emily can play when she's older. Owen's doing better. He asks about Greg sometimes, but not as much as he used to. He's back in his therapy routine, and his therapist says he's resilient. Kids are, I guess. Emily just turned 6 months old. She's a happy baby, always smiling, always reaching for her mom. Sarah's still tired, still healing, but she's herself again. My strong, capable daughter, who didn't deserve any of this, but fought her way through it anyway. I'm proud of her, and I'm glad I found her that day in the Costco parking lot. I don't want to think about what would have happened if I hadn't. Some nights, when the house is quiet and the kids are asleep, Sarah and I sit at the kitchen table and talk. She tells me she's thinking about going back to work, maybe taking some online courses to get recertified as a dental hygienist. She talks about the future, about the life she wants to build for Owen and Emily. And I listen, because that's what fathers do. We listen, we protect, we fight for our kids when they can't fight for themselves. That's what I did, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat.